This week I want to talk about some clones that I really like, but I think they're failing at their job. Stay tuned. So this video idea basically emerged when I recently picked up this from Paris Corner, which is their clone of Afternoon Swim. It's the North Stag Expressions line, and this is number 4, Quatre. And I'll get to that in a few, but it got me thinking, because it's a really good fragrance. I really like it a lot. And it very clearly has similarities with the Louis Vuitton, but I started wondering why it wasn't striking me as a good clone. And I have another example that I'll talk about as well, but I started to think about that because I have a couple of different clones where I'm like, no, they're either doing the job or they're not. And I started to think about why that is. And there's some cases where the clones are just bad, but there are other cases where the clones are good, the quality is seemingly good, but they're missing something. So for the first one, this one has stood out to me since I got it, because I got this as a blind buy without having smelled the reference, and then I went in and smelled them side by side, and that is Bright Peach from Maison Alhambra. It's Latafa, a sub-brand of Latafa, and I believe that this bottle is going away because it's legally actionable, and they're moving to different bottles, but I picked this up just because I thought, oh, that sounds like fun, it's 24 bucks. And then I smelled it and I'm like, there's no way this can actually be a proper clone of the Tom Ford. So I went in to Nordstrom and I got a spray of Bitter Peach, and then I got home and did them side by side, and I was like, wow, no, that's pretty much spot on. I've seen other people do comparisons and they can detect differences. I cannot really. For me, when I smell Bright Peach, it is basically one note. It's basically just peach, but it's to me more like Safeway brand Peacho rings, you know? It's kind of like that off-brand, not Haribo Peachos, but like off-brand Peachos. Again, that makes it sound more negative than I feel about it. This isn't something that I especially like to wear, but I also think that it's not very interesting. So in this instance, I kind of think that it failed because I think the reference material was not very good to begin with. And I guess that's not like unheard of or uncommon. This one just stood out to me because like, normally when you get a clone of something, they're doing something that's, I don't know, interesting. They're doing something that's a little bit more interesting. And to me, this one is just, hold on, let me spray it. So I'll throw the notes up for Bright Peach / Bitter Peach up on the thing there. But the notes just make no sense to me. Like, I'm supposed to get like rum and cognac and woody notes and all this stuff, and really I just get like a super sweet peach. Once it dries down and becomes just a skin scent, then I start to pick up a little bit more vanilla, but that's about it. Like, this is just a pretty straightforward peachy scent. And when I smelled the Tom Ford, I was like, wow, that's just like a, I don't know if anyone here ever smoked and ever bought like the little like singles that you can get from the gas station, but if you ever had a Prime Time, they're like little mini individual cigarettes, and this smells just like the peach Prime Times, minus the tobacco. So it's just kind of the peach. It's just kind of an artificial peach scent to me, and that's just a weird thing. So like, I don't hate it. I don't know when I would ever wear this, with the exception of what I'm about to talk about. But it just kind of seems like not a complete finished fragrance to me. This feels like part of a fragrance, which I think was kind of intentional on Tom Ford's part. So I went in a separate time to Nordstrom because I wanted to smell another Tom Ford that I have a sample of here, which is Ebene Fumé, which I believe is how you pronounce it. And that is like a smoky incense, Palo Santo, like it's just this like really resinous, dark, smoky, classy, bitter fragrance. And when I went up to the Tom Ford counter, there was someone working there, and I asked to get a sample or to just smell Ebene Fumé, and they told me that they couldn't because they didn't have the bottle, because the bottle was over in some sort of a class that Nordstrom was putting on. And it was all about how to layer the fragrances with Tom Ford fragrances. I was like, okay. And then it occurred to me, because one of the examples of things to layer with bitter peach, in Tom's Ford's case, is Ebene Fumé, which I then tried, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it here. So you layer them together, and suddenly you have a lot more of an interesting fragrance, because you add all the stuff from Palo Santo, or from the Ebene Fumé into the bitter peach. But this is kind of one of my issues. Layering in general, I'm not wild about. I want a completed product on its own. I understand the fun aspect of layering, and I can see it. And like, if someone wants to layer, knock yourselves out. But anytime that a company or a perfumer is pushing it, I just kind of like squint at them a little bit, because I'm like, yeah, especially in the case of like Tom Ford, I bet you'd love to sell one $400 or $300 bottle of this, which on its own is not a complete fragrance, with something like Ebene Fumé, which is a complete fragrance, but then you can basically punch this one up. It just seems like an opportunity for them to make extra money. It doesn't mean that it's not a valid thing to do. Obviously, you wear the fragrances that you want, but I feel like the whole trend itself just kind of makes me go, yeah, it's a really smart marketing thing for all these companies to push layering, because then they get to sell 2 bottles, right? So I'm not huge on the layering trend. You know, like, there's all the stuff with the fragrance enhancers, and I have a video about Juliet has a gun, not a perfume. I think some of the claims about that are a little bit overhyped in my experience. When I used that fragrance enhancer, it basically just kind of turned I think the way I described it in the video was it turned the volume down on the fragrance by 20%. It just made the fragrance last longer by kind of muting it, made it stick to your skin a little bit more strongly. So that's kind of why I knock against this one, is I feel like bitter peach, it just doesn't feel like a complete fragrance to me. It's not a bad fragrance. I really like peach a lot. If this had been like peach with something, like if they had made this with all of the other notes that are in there, I would find that pretty interesting, I think. But as it stands, it just feels like it's one paint color that they're expecting you to buy a bunch of other paint colors to go with it. That just feels like kind of a crappy practice to me. I'm not wild about that, even though I like the scents, but give me a completed product. So that's kind of where I stand with this. That's why I haven't really talked about bright peach very much. It just kind of fits in a weird spot in my collection where it's like, yeah, it's not bad, but I'm not gonna wear it because I'm probably not gonna do a whole lot of layering. That being said, I have a lot of creative choices that you could layer it with. Like this with Cloud would probably be pretty interesting, or any other BR540 clone. It just, you know, I want to smell completed works. That's kind of my jam. Where I'm at right now in exploring fragrances and things like that, I'm kind of wanting to behold the art, you know? So something like this where it just feels half done to me, I feel like they failed here. So I can't blame Lattafa or Maison Alhambra for like not achieving the clone, because I think they nailed it with this. And most in this line I think are pretty spot on. Like the Tuscan leather one is really good. The effing Fabulous is not. I have that one. I have no clue what they're trying to clone, but Fabuloso Intense smells like green bell peppers to me. So I don't know. It's not almondy, that's for sure. But anyway, let me know what you think. If this is, am I like onto something here? I don't think it's crazy to suggest that these companies are looking for ways to maximize their profits, as we could tell with the prices they're charging. But layering to me is one of those ones where I'm like, it may be good, but it's also something that you're pushing because it's self-serving. So, whatever. I don't think it's an evil practice for them to be doing that. I just kind of am like, do you actually like for me, part of it is like the perfumers. I understand if perfumers are getting, you know, bonuses or whatever based on how well the fragrances themselves sell. But like, I would imagine as a perfumer, like if someone was taking my completed work that I'd worked on for 2 years or something like that, and then was like, yeah, let's splash some Club de Nuit on top of it, I would be like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like it would be not what I would want as a perfumer, but I'm not a perfumer. So maybe if one of them watches this, they can tell me how wrong I am and tell me what a great thing for the industry layering is. Because to me, it just seems like a maybe honest money grab is kind of how I view it, but let me know what you think. So next up, kind of talking more about the Paris corner here. This one, again, continues the string of like, wow, that's pretty good from Paris corner for me. I really do like them a lot. But this one got me thinking because I smelled it and I thought, wow, that smells really nice. That smells, I think I saw someone say that it's like just getting sprayed with orange juice. And I think it's, I can get a test strip out here. I think that it's more than that. I think there is some depth to this, but I also think that it is a little bit one note. In a way that Afternoon Swim, which is what this is cloning, is not. So I want to back up a little bit and talk about a different house entirely, and that is Cartier. So last year I started collecting the fragrances. I have, I think 4 or 5, maybe 6 from the Declaration line, and I have Pasha de Parfum, or Pasha de Cartier Parfum, which everyone who's watched my channel knows that is one of my favorites, as you can tell, because I've ripped through like, I don't know, 40% to 30% of the bottle in the 6 months that I've had it. I love this stuff. It is incredible. But one of the things I noticed when I smelled it, these two, Declaration EDT, this is the original from like 91 or something like that, and this one came out in 2020, I believe. There's a good number of time separating both of them, a couple of decades at least. And so it struck me that there was something common between the two of them. And as I picked up more from the house and I smelled more from the house, I kept detecting kind of something similar. And if you've smelled any Cartiers before, then you might pick up on this. But there's kind of like this almost sweaty vibe to some of their fragrances. Like with this one, and I'm going to do a whole video on the Declaration line at some point, but once I get the last 1 or 2 that I've been trying to track down. But with the EDT, to me, this one has always struck me as it's like a guy in the office who wears long sleeve shirts, and when you get close, he rolls them up and he's got like sleeve tattoos, you know? It's kind of like, when you're far away, this just smells like a nice, clean, aromatic fragrance, but once you get up close, then you're kind of picking up on some of that little edginess. And the same thing with Pasha. This is like one of the classiest fragrances that I own. I think it smells absolutely gorgeous. It is spicy, it's rich, it's beautiful, but it has that same thing. And a lot of Cartier fragrances do. It's kind of, I think, I've identified it personally as kind of like their DNA. I think it's kind of the through line through a lot of their men's fragrances that make them all smell cohesive in a way. Even though they smell very different from one another, there's kind of a common through line with them that gives them kind of a shared DNA. So, why am I talking about Cartier when I'm actually going to be talking about Louis Vuitton clones? The reason why is because I happen to be lucky enough to live close to a Louis Vuitton, and every so once in a while I will go in and I'll pester them and until they basically gave me a big bag full of a bunch of samples of things. I think I've got probably 10 to 15 samples in here. And there's some of the samples that I go after the most just because I think Louis Vuitton fragrances are one of the more interesting design houses. So one of the things that's true, and I think I can use this as a better example, is this fragrance that I got in December for Christmas actually, which is their clone of Stellar Times, which is Armaf's clone of Stellar Times. This is Shams Hamidi. And I have a video about this one as well. This fragrance smells beautiful. This smells gorgeous, and when you smell it on your own, when you smell it on its own, if you're familiar with Stellar Times, you'll go, oh yeah, that's a Stellar Times clone. No, I get that. Like, it totally makes you think of Stellar Times. It's evocative. There's something about it. But then when you do them side by side, you're like, oh no, that's way different. Like that smells quite a bit different. And then, you give it a minute and you're like, okay, I can see where they're coming from. There's something that's kind of missing from that. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I have a vibe when I'm smelling Stellar Times, and I'm having a vibe when I'm smelling Afternoon Swim that I don't get from Quatre. This is kind of, I don't know, maybe someone is an insider. There was someone that I wanted to ask. and I didn't get around to it. That might have information on this, but here's my suspicion with this. I suspect Louis Vuitton, the owner of LVMH, I think just was revealed to be the richest man in the world. Don't know if he still is, but you know, one of the things that is true about that, if you are the richest man in the world and you own a company that makes fragrances like Louis Vuitton, I mean, they don't make them, obviously. They, I think, have someone else make them. Do they have an in-house perfumer, though? I don't know. See, I don't know that much about Louis Vuitton fragrances, but one thing that I do know is, kind of like Cartier, there is a shared DNA between them. It's not exactly the same, but there is, I think, what can best be described as a vibe that I get from all of them to some degree or another. So with Afternoon Swim is very much a orange, like you're getting, and when I say orange, I mean all of the fruits that are orange colored, and you're getting kind of like the oil from their peel. It's a very bright, very clean, like orangey, like this is gonna be great for spring and summer. I can't wait to wear this more when the weather warms up a little bit more. But if you put it side by side with Afternoon Swim, it's missing something. And I think it's, you can kind of sense it more with this one, because when you smell Stellar Times, for me, I smell Stellar Times and I go, that smells like a rich female CEO. Like, it is one of the most appealing fragrances, but also kind of awe-inspiring in the way that, like, I don't know how many of you have like corporate jobs, but you pass in the hallway like a high executive, high-powered executive or something like that. This would be like that, you know. A woman walks by you and get a whiff of this, and you're like, wow, she smells expensive. Like, there's just something about it, and I can't really put my foot, like I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is, but I think that what is going on is LVMH is paying the company that actually makes the fragrances. I think they at some point paid for some sort of an accord or a molecule or something like that that they have exclusive access to. Reminds me of when, I think it's Vuitton, made this new molecule, and they only gave access to a few specific perfumers and houses to make. The one I'm thinking of in particular, I can't remember what it was called, but it's the molecule that was in Gucci Guilty Absolute that kind of has that Band-Aidy sort of smell. It's like this leather, this Band-Aidy leather sort of smell. So these houses, or these flavor houses like Firmenich and Vuitton, they create these molecules and then they have exclusive rights to them, right? They have a copy, or not a copy, well, do they copyright? Might be a copyright. They're the only ones that can use this molecule that they discovered, they created. And I think, this is my theory, Louis Vuitton has paid for exclusive rights to that. That's my guess. That may be happening, and this may be very obvious that I'm just now like, hey, I think there's this thing going on. And I don't think it's meant to be conspiratorial. If I were Louis Vuitton and I had that kind of money, I would say, yeah, listen, we want to make fragrances, but we want you to use something in here to give them a distinct smell, a distinct vibe that only you can get with our fragrances. And so far, in all of the Louis Vuitton fragrances I've smelled, the clones, they all kind of miss that. There's this je ne sais quoi, as the French might say. In the Louis Vuitton, you know, I think there's, or in Stellar Times, there's this, I think it's a musk or something like that. It's just so hard, but like it kind of, it gives the vibe of like I'm on vacation. I smelled someone like walking by me who clearly has money, and this is the vibe I got before I had like ever smelled any Louis Vuitton fragrances, or smelled ones that were like, clearly I haven't smelled this before on a rich person, this just came out. So they are doing something that is shared with other fragrances that does something like that. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here because I'm kind of still trying to figure it out, piece it together, but that's my theory. I think Louis Vuitton has access to an exclusive molecule, and I think that's one of the ways in which they keep clones from really nailing it as close as they can, because I think like this one is really good. Like this smells high quality, smells very nice, but is missing something. It's just missing that little piece. When you're smelling this from very competent houses, I think like Armaf does a pretty admirable job. I've got some bad Armaf clones, but in recent years I think they've been doing a lot better job, and I think this does an admirable job. To me, I think I feel like this is like Shams Hamidi to me comes across like maybe a flanker of Stellar Times, something like that. I don't know, but it's a real doozy because I would love to have some Louis Vuitton fragrances, but I don't want to pay Louis Vuitton prices. They are so expensive, and especially like the Stellar Times, which is a grail fragrance for me. I would love to have Stellar Times, but it's just it's so expensive. And also, while I don't care too much about gender in fragrances, a fragrance that like has less utility to me because I can't really see myself wearing it that much because it is, I think, so clearly a feminine targeted release that just doesn't really fit me or my style. But I still want it because I want to smell it. I want to smell it so bad. And I was hoping that this would scratch the itch, and it kind of does, but it kind of makes me just want to smell the real thing more. So I'm probably just gonna have to get a bottle of it at some point. On the other hand, I feel like this probably fits the bill. You know, some Louis Vuitton fragrances feel more special than others, and I think like they're lighter. You know, the citrus fragrances that they've released since like 2019, 2020 are all very good. They all smell great. I think they're some of the best in class examples, but they don't necessarily set my world on fire. So nice to have something like this that reminisces. I would love a real clone of Stellar Times if anyone knows of one. I kind of don't think that they can exist though, and I kind of think that this is one of those things where you just have to bite the bullet and take out a loan. So anyway, this was just kind of a video for me to ramble about this pet theory of mine. Let me know if it sounds like a total crackpot, stupid idea, and maybe I'm onto something, and someone in the comments can tell me something more so I learn, because that's my goal ultimately. I want to learn more. But I will leave you by saying I'm still wearing it, I'm still getting used to it. I'm going to do a video on it, a full video at some point, but I will say Paris Corner, once again, on its own, a great fragrance. If you compare it, still not a bad fragrance, but the thing I like about Paris Corner is that the fragrances, I think, stand on their own, and this is no different. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. In fact, you know, I need to show this to my sister-in-law because I feel like it's like the evolution of Clinique Happy that she would probably really like a lot. So yeah, this is great. Orange bottles, typically pretty good. I like CK1 Summer Days is good. Bright Peach, it's all right, but this is a good one. So that's all I've got for you this week. Hope you felt it was worth your time. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next week. Bye.